appreciate you. I expect that it's so interesting because between like 10:32 and 10:34 is when most folks chime in. But regardless, we're anxious to hear whatever it is you've got to share with us today. So again, I appreciate you honoring us with the time and adding this to your schedule. So let's rock and roll.
Well, Ben, thank you for the opportunity. It's you know, not a whole lot of time opportunities. I really get to share my passions, my story, and had a good friend of mine some years ago when I was still a drill sergeant, and I'll cover that in a second. That told me that everything I've experienced in my life, the ups and the downs, the sideways, my successes and my failures were to build a story to share because someone needed to actually hear it and someone needed to see it. So that being said, again, thank you, Ben. Thank you everyone for coming on today. I am Howard Rose, team leader here at KW Frisco Stars. A little bit about me, 20 years in the military. I retired. I was a drill sergeant, Army recruiter, Iraq War veteran, Bronze Star recipient, Artie Murphy member, top 2% of all NCOs in the Army, only gained that. From Atlanta, Georgia. I say all that to go back to my first, acknowledge who you are. Guys, that doesn't sound like it's not a big statement, but for me, it's a huge statement. It's power in that. And the reason why I start there and acknowledging who you are, I have to take you back. Some of you may have heard the story, some are not. It's growing up in Atlanta, Georgia. I grew up with what was then thought of as a learning disorder. Two, I had a horrible speech impediment. I couldn't have a conversation with anyone. I stuttered just to say my own name. And born with dyslexia. So you couple being from Atlanta, Georgia, and I don't have to tell you, being a Black man and society, you're labeled now. What was then considered a learning disorder, what now is, it's just a different way to learn. And that's all it was. I didn't lack the intelligence. It was, I learned different. And because I was picked on, because I was labeled something I wasn't, I struggled for a long time as a kid. It was a difficult struggle up into my early teenage years. And I experienced something that changed my life. It wasn't, for me, it wasn't anything that was big, but for me, it was, as a 13-year-old kid, it was astronomical. I'm sitting in, I'm gonna date myself, they don't teach home ec in high school anymore. Sitting in home ec class, learning how to cook, clean, and do all those things. I had a pastor come in to present to us. And one of the things that he said, that he looked in the mirror every single morning, thank you, looked in the mirror every single morning, and he said this phrase. If I was a woman, he said, it started out, you are the best looking man I've ever seen in my entire life. If I was a woman, I would marry you today. Doesn't sound like a whole lot. Now, I'm gonna back up again. He was probably the most uncomely person you've ever seen in your entire life. And if you don't, I'm being nice with words, uncomely, not awesome to the sight. And however, as a 13-year-old boy, into the room walks his fiance. We have a guys and girls at 13. Our voice drops, our hormones pop, and when his fiance walked in the room, she could have been Miss Georgia, absolutely drop dead gorgeous. And it wasn't that she walked in the room and gorgeous; it was how he kissed her in front of us. Now, mind you, at that moment, what I saw was a man that we all laughed at as kids, that a lot of people laughed at, but he believed in himself so much, and that he felt that he could do anything, get anything he wanted with that statement, that what that poured into me that day, that poured into me. One, I wasn't, I was different, but I wasn't a success. So I sought to get the help for the things I was working with, for my speech impediment, for my learning difference. And what it is, it helped to propel me to be an amazing young man who was able to join the Army, acknowledging who I was, and it continued to propel me to this day. I had to acknowledge that I was more, than what everyone else said that I was. I had to acknowledge that regardless of the color of my skin, regardless of what I've endured, I was more. And once I did that, walls began to fall. Everything in front of me, it was like dominoes. You knock down one and they begin to fall. Everything begins to fall. I'm now in the Army. I get recruited to be an Army recruiter. I go to boards. I'm sitting in front of individuals answering questions. I earned Sergeant Order Murphy, again, the top 2% of NCOs in the Army, period. I get DA selected to be a drill sergeant. I lead 240 soldiers every day for 2 years. As a realtor, I am now the team leader, a Black team leader in Frisco, Texas, of $1 billion office. It wasn't given to me. I earned that. However, it began with acknowledging who I was and understanding that there was nothing I could not accomplish, yet I had to believe it first. My goodness, understanding that changed my life. That one chance meeting in home ec at 13 changed my entire life, changed the trajectory that I've been on since that day. And what I did was I made a decision that I was more, and I set my feet firm. I wasn't going to let anyone distract me from what I was going to do. And when I tell you distractions are there, when you make a change, especially for the better, where I'm from, where it was cooler to sell drugs, it was cooler to be a thug, it was cooler to be able to fight. Now I could fight. I was pretty good. These things are pretty good. I could do all of that. And I did fit. I was a little small in high school. That being said, it was cooler to be all of that than to tell my friends no and work on, one, my faith. I had a praying grandmother and a praying grandfather, and I'm so thankful for that. Instill that kind of faith in me. Guys, I was 15 minutes from going to jail for murder. 15 minutes. I need you to understand. 15 minutes. Cortez, Bebe, and Mike knocked on my door, called me my childhood name, said, "Hey, Squirt, let's walk to Winn-Dixie." Winn-Dixie is the old style grocery store. Again, I'm dating myself. And normally these are my boys. At 15, I would have said, "Let's go." Something said no. And I said, "Guys, not this time." 15 minutes later, Mike shot a kid over a penny and a freaking pencil. Michael did every day of 25 years in jail. Bebe's family had money. Of course, he gave up information. He did a couple of days in jail. Cortez did 8 years in jail. Cortez, his name is Sicily now. I share that with you. I set my feet firm and going into the direction that I was going. I decided to change. I decided to be different. Had I stayed the same way, you wouldn't know me. I wouldn't be here. I couldn't have this conversation. Understand, 15 minutes from going to jail for murder. It was by the grace of God that I said no, because I had already made a decision to do something different. What my friends would tell me, one of my best friends, now Bishop Lewis, when he got his calling from God, and I'm gonna have you excuse me for a second. He called me.
Powerful. Keep going, brother. Keep going. We're with you.
Malcolm called me, and he said, "Squirt, I wanna thank you for the encouragement you gave me. You don't realize when we were out running the streets, you look at the time, it was 6 o'clock. It was time for you to go to Bible study or go to choir practice. And whatever we were doing, you left and went. Because I had no choice. My granddaddy would have beat me up like crazy. I had no choice. But I'm so thankful that that core in me, it got me to this day. What I also learned from all of that, be resilient in all of that. Yeah, I was talked about. I was picked on. Um, I was a football player, pretty good. Played the trumpet, dang good. There was probably a little bit, most anything I couldn't do once I set my mind to it. But it was to be resilient because I had setbacks, I had failures, and knowing now, I mean, it helped me. But the conversation that I have in me now, being around such amazing people like you, such an amazing company like Keller Williams, Gary Keller has failed more times than all of us put together. And I say to myself, I wish to fail as often as he has. When you're resilient, failure is going to come. Ladies and gentlemen, I promise you, you don't learn getting it right. You can do it what you think is right all the time, and you may have success with it until you don't. Until you don't. And that's when you learn. I've learned more in my 53 and a half years that has got me here because I was resilient. It was okay to have failure. It was okay to not win. It was okay not to get the solo in for the first Sunday or second Sunday. It was okay not to get the solo in band. It was okay not to be a starter immediately on football. It was okay to be kicked off of the high school basketball team because I was too short. It was okay. Talking about basketball, I would punish all those guys that made the team every weekend at Brady's gym. I'd punish them because I was that good. I just happened to be short. I punished them in the gym happily, on purpose. I was resilient. I knew who I was. I didn't let anything stop me. Failure was fuel, absolute fuel. Last but not least, rejoice. Oh, you've seen some tears today, but those tears are so happy, so powerful for me. Rejoice in everything. Rejoice in your successes. One of the things I still deal with, and I'm getting, as I like to say, I'm still overcoming, is the willingness to be out front and tell my story, to be happy in public, to share everything I've done, accomplished in public. That's something that I deal with, something that I'm still being delivered from. Rejoice. Now, I don't know what your religion is. You don't have to share, but if you have faith, God put something in you so that you could accomplish whatever it is you accomplish, so that you could show someone else. If your faith is strong, because I stand on this rock, I stand on this faith, and when I win, it's not because of me, it's because of He that instilled all of this in me. Rejoice. Be proud of that. It is all life changing. Ladies and gentlemen, that's ah, what a man, what a joy, what a joy it is. And I will tell you, and I'll be brief. When I was first entered into, and I first became part of the leadership team over here at KW Frisco, was it last year? It was just before I became assistant team leader. I watched Matt Gruder walk across the stage at the regional awards as a rookie team leader of the year. I turned to Rachel, who was my MCA. I said, that's going to be me. I'm going to walk across the stage as a rookie team leader of the year. Ladies and gentlemen, you're looking at rookie team leader of the year for the region of North Texas, of New Mexico. What God has put in me, nobody can take from me. I don't care who you are, what you look like. I am who I am. I've ascended where I've ascended because my faith, my belief, my strength, and all of that. I thank my mom. I thank my dad. I thank my grandparents. I thank God for giving me what He's given me, and I'm not done yet. I am so far from being done. So far from being done. Now that's my time.
Howard, you and I are very emotional, sensitive guys, and I think it's because we're passionate. And I appreciate you sharing that passion and being vulnerable. And I think a real man does not have to apologize at all for feeling it, right? In church, we say, oh man, when you feel it, right, you express it, right? So thank you for that, man. And I can tell you, I walk away with just a couple of points, and I'm so glad that you emphasize these. I mean, acknowledge who you are, and I think not just who you are, but where you come from, right, is important. I also heard that, and from 13 years old, you heard that if you think you can, you can.
Yes.
Right. So I got that. Don't miss that nugget, y'all. And I would also, you said that I am more. And I'll tell you how that related, how I heard it was, and I know you were in Anaheim with us, right? That Ed Milet, I think of all the speakers that we've had, for some reason, he seems to resonate with the audience more than anybody I've ever heard. And I think he was saying that I'm the one. I think that's what he said, but that's how I related what you just said to what he said, right? And I think that you've challenged yourself. The good Lord has given you these opportunities and these platforms, and you're not wasting it, right? Because you are the one. And I thank you for sharing that, guys. I all I can say is my boy Howard Rose, he brought the meat this week. And if you didn't feel it, then that's a you problem. That's a you problem, right? So thanks for sharing the passion. Events, I appreciate you. Christine, I know your schedule is so busy. Thanks for jumping in. Anything else to leave us with? Are you good?
Well, guys, well, if you have any questions, I think Stephen had, did you raise your hand? You had a question, Steve?
No.
Steve, you're muted.
Yeah. I think he's good because his office, Howard, is right next to me. So I hear him through the wall. So and our girl Kelly James, he's out there working, she's walking. So Christine, we appreciate you guys again joining in. Same like every week. Next week we'll also bring the meat. I've got a very interesting guest host that I can't wait to hear. I think today is a beautiful day as we sit here in Dallas, Plano, Frisco, Texas, wherever you're at. Let's go make it a great day. Someone needs to hear from us because we have an opportunity to impact and hopefully strengthen a family somewhere.
Ben, thank you so very much for the opportunity, my friend. Guys, thank you for allowing me to share with you. And I hope something I've said touches you in a way, gets you to take a step forward. Believe more if you don't. Whatever your faith is, hold on to that, embrace that. And much like Ben said in church, you get a feeling, we always should let him use you.
Yep, absolutely.
Let him use you.
Well, and he's used you, my brother. And again, thank you so much for your service. It's appreciated and does not go unnoticed. So
absolutely. Thank you.
Guys, be well. See you next week.